HCAM TV thanks you for watching this presentation. We'd love for you to become a member and use your creativity at our station. Please visit hinghammedia.org or call us at 781-836-5094 if you would like to learn more.
You are watching Jack and Si's Big Five.
Good evening and welcome to the third edition of Jack and Si's Big Five. Today we have a lot to get into, especially with regards to the NBA as free agency continues and as football season is rapidly approaching. Starting with the NFL, after a sensational rookie campaign, Dallas Cowboys star running back Ezekiel Elliott has dealt with some drama this offseason. Second-year players that have had success as rookies often take a big step back in their second year. Simon, given the circumstances surrounding Elliott, do you think he may be destined for a sophomore slump?
Unfortunately, Jack, I think this is the case for Ezekiel. Just after watching one season, I'm already willing to go as far as to say that he is the third best running back in the NFL behind Arizona's David Johnson and Pittsburgh Steelers' Le'Veon Bell. He has the ability with his power at 6 foot, 225 pounds to run over your best defenders, and he also has that burst element too. He's very fast in the open field and can make plays for you, and especially when you combine that he has these abilities as a top 5 draft pick, and it appears to be well deserved behind a great young offensive line. Right. This offense in the Dallas Cowboys seems to have as much promise as anyone for years to come in the NFL, especially when you combine that they have their signal caller, Dak Prescott, won Rookie of the Year, and he's certainly poised to continue to keep growing and keep improving. So to see Ezekiel Elliott with this much talent within himself and around him, it's really unfortunate to see these multiple instances continue. This most recent one at the Dallas bar where he apparently knocked someone out already under the sexual investigation that's been ongoing from his days at Ohio State, and Adam Schefter of ESPN reported a day prior to the bar fight that he'd be suspended potentially for 1 or 2 games. So now that this incident is put on top of that, it seems like that's more likely, and he's costing his team and himself at a young age. He's already been a Rookie of the Year candidate and appeared in a Pro Bowl in his first year, so he's already being looked to as a leader, and he's just not displaying it currently, which is sad to see.
Definitely, and I also think he's perfectly set up for failure this year because of how well he did last year. It's going to be really hard to accumulate those stats again anyway. But if you look at the situation he's in Dallas, the America's team, the Cowboys, he has a very poorly run franchise with Jerry Jones, a lot of controversy all the time, and he also has a young quarterback too, and a diva receiver in Dez Bryant, who wants his touches. Everyone wants the fame there. So I can definitely see things getting ugly. The schedule's getting a lot tougher this year, and especially with how well they did last year, it looks like everything's destined for definitely taking a step back.
Yeah, if you look, Dak Prescott, rookie, Ezekiel Elliott, rookie for the first time, NFL defenses have a full year of tape that they can use to study up on them and help contain them better. And also you have like you said, the culture in Dallas where you've had players, Randy Gregory, Rolando McClain, Joseph Randle, I can keep going with guys
Greg Hardy,
guys who off the field have acted foolishly, and Ezekiel Elliott now adds to that list. The only difference is he's looked at one of the faces of the franchise, and with Jerry Jones at the top, there's a team that's coming back that has so much talent, especially offensively, but it just seems like they continue to get in their own way, and that seems to be the narrative with the Cowboys over and over again, and there's just another chapter in that book.
Definitely, and if you look at going into last season, it looked like Romo was going to be the starter once again. He's been their longtime veteran quarterback, and then he gets injured, so Prescott comes into the mix. So it's him and Ezekiel Elliott are now the stars of the offense instead of Tony Romo throwing at Dez Bryant. So now that the whole NFL's seen that for a year, they did not expect that at all last year. They didn't know what to expect. So now they've seen their style of play, the ground and pound game, for over a year, and they will be much more prepared going forward.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting from our perspective doing the show as a 21 and 20-year-old to see and kind of react to these guys being eye-to-eye level age-wise. Yeah. And Ezekiel Elliott just turned 21. He's very young, and unfortunately, he seems like a guy who, when he's given money, he's only in his rookie contract. Right. If he continues to produce, he's only going to get paid more, and he's a guy that when fame and adulation and money that's big time comes his way, he simply can't handle it and makes poor decisions, and hopefully you'd like to see that stop. It almost comes to the point where you feel like he needs to have like a 24/7 counselor with him to make sure he's making the right decisions, managing his money right, and not making poor decisions that can cost himself and the team ultimately.
Absolutely, and it starts up top with that franchise. Jerry Jones has been a big shot owner, but he's also known to get into trouble, be a very controversial guy, and it's been run through the franchise for years. Just not very well-run franchise the way you look at the Patriots. It's just nothing like that at all. The discipline, the structure is just not there, and I feel bad for Ezekiel Elliott. As such a young kid, he has very little structure and no father figure on the team the way we have such a great staff in New England. And I think players on the team have also had similar problems in the past. So going forward, this could be a very big learning year for him and a big learning curve.
Yeah, I'll end with this. Here's a bad mix that you get with here in the coming season. You have the Dallas Cowboys, who have the number one strength of schedule. You're coming off a 13-3 season where you may ultimately fail, and you're Ezekiel Elliott. You've lost 4 games in your college career.
Right.
You lost once in high school. Your rookie year in the NFL, you went 13-3. He's not used to losing, and he may have to cope with that, and that may be a problem for him.
Definitely.
All right, so moving on to our second topic, we're moving over to the association. The trade talks continue to painfully drag on for the Knicks star forward, Carmelo Anthony. Anthony is reportedly willing to waive his no-trade clause in his contract that'll make a deal work with the Houston Rockets, though the talks between these two have recently been paused. Jack, this is certainly a mess that doesn't seem to be getting any better between Melo and the Knicks organization. What should the Knicks do with Melo here?
At this point, there's no reason he should still be in New York. If you look at when he came there 7 years ago, he had a team with Amari Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler, and that seemed to be their chance to compete for the title. And the last couple of years, they've been nowhere close to even making the playoffs, and they're going in a different direction. They've brought in Kristaps Porzingis, a young, talented guy, and they've had a lot of young guys come in and out, but they haven't had any stars to play alongside Carmelo, and he's 33 now, and the ages just don't match up with that franchise. They have to get rid of him. He's not helping the team anymore. It's also wasting his career. So both sides need to agree it's time to get him out of here. He seems to want to go to Houston, so I don't know why the Knicks would be taking their time to get rid of him. He wants out. They should want him gone. I don't know what's taking so long.
Yeah, for any Knicks fans who have the argument of, well, we fired Phil Jackson, that's all it should take for Melo to want to stay. But the bridge has been burned between him and the entire front office, not just Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was obviously the one just fired weeks ago, but he was the one who publicly came out and said all the bad things about Melo. Right. Talking about how he, doesn't really fit in with New York, doesn't fit in with the culture, and he's saying this publicly. He's not saying this within the confines of the locker room. He's saying it to the media, and so that's a terrible thing for Melo to deal with, who is, he's at age 33, so he doesn't have the same type of Denver expectations where you expect him to come in and maybe single-handedly lead you to a championship contender, but you'd like for Melo's sake to leave, to join, obviously, the Rockets are the target, play with a friend in Chris Paul, someone he's familiar with, someone who's played USA basketball with, where he's had his biggest success, and try to go for a last run there. You're not winning a title with the roster in Houston, but you're certainly more happy. And then from the Knicks' perspective, I think it's vital for them at this stage of where their franchise is to name Kristaps Porzingis the sole face of the franchise. I think fans and people within the Knicks organization have realized over the past year or so that Kristaps has become the star player on the team, 7-3 with an outside game, and he will only continue to get better. He's so young, but people can't get over that there is that 3-time USA champion there in Melo, and just having the name Carmelo on the team. So I think it's best for both parties for them to move on.
Definitely, and I'm usually a big fan of being loyal to your franchise in the NBA, and he obviously wanted to be in New York, and he wanted to give it a try and see how they could do, but I think it's just way past his time there, and he has to understand that if he wants to, he's wasting his prime years, the end of his prime. He wants to go somewhere else and try to help his legacy at this point because he's just wasting his last couple of years of his prime right now in New York. He could look up to team up with LeBron James or Chris Paul next year because they're both free agents and they're good friends, so we could maybe see that in New York, but I don't think they would want to go to that mess in New York. So I think he definitely should try to get out right now with this, force a trade, buy out his contract, something like that.
Yeah, do you really see a scenario where LeBron could play with Melo anywhere outside of New York?
I could
I
see
just
him
can't see that happening, really.
possibly in Los Angeles, or even if Melo were to go to Cleveland, force a trade
Yeah.
to Cleveland. I think that would be a better fit actually for Carmelo than Houston.
I agree.
And I think
Yeah.
they'd have a better chance to win the championship than Houston as well.
Yeah, I think Kevin Love is the one guy who obviously would be the expendable one in that
Definitely,
trade. But
yeah.
if you're the Cavaliers, then I think you downgrade on defense and rebounding, which is critical in a rematch with the Warriors. So I don't think that would improve the Cavaliers. But if you're just looking at it in a vacuum, anything is better than getting out of New York for Melo,
Definitely,
so.
yeah. At this point, just the ages just don't match up. If they want to go young, which they're trying to do now, you can't have like a 34-year-old playing with a 23-year-old core. Like, you just can't do that.
Right.
If you look at the teams that have won the championships in recent years, the Warriors, they're mostly 26 to 28, they're stars. The Celtics, when they came together and they won that year, they were about 29, 31, all around the same age. So OKC with Westbrook and Durant,
Right.
same age. So, and now you look at what the Timberwolves are trying to do now. They have a young core in place. Everyone's around the same age, and you want to have everyone in the same page going in the same direction.
Kind of reminds you of Kobe at the twilight of his career.
Definitely,
He's
yeah.
surrounded by all young guys who are just so much younger than him. You can't even fathom
Exactly,
them
yeah.
succeeding together.
It just
and
never
that
works.
Seems similar with Melo, certainly here.
Definitely. So moving forward and sticking with the NBA, the best player in the league, LeBron James, hits free agency next summer. As we watch free agency play out with his Cleveland Cavaliers this summer, making very little noise, it's becoming increasingly likely that he may depart. Simon, how likely is it that he winds up with the Los Angeles Lakers, and how quickly could his addition vault them to contender status?
Well, I think him going to LA, I didn't believe it at first, but it seems like a real possibility now. But there's one caveat, because if you look at the LA Lakers makeup, if you just add LeBron, the two stars on there are Lonzo Ball and LeBron James, two guys whose biggest skill is passing ability. So I think for LeBron to agree to terms with the Lakers, he'd have to know a guy. The obvious choice here is Paul George,
Right.
to have that scoring option, because if you just have Lonzo and LeBron, I mean, LeBron can obviously go out and get you 30 as well, but
He'd have to change
you-
his game.
a little
Yeah.
too much passing, a little passing to a fault, and with two great passers on there, you don't want their top targets to be, just Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You
Right.
want
Yeah.
other guy, and Brooke Lopez. So it's going to take Paul George being committed to go to LA, and that's dependent on how happy he is in OKC after 1 year. So we'll have to wait this NBA season to see if Paul George wants to make that jump with LeBron. And the other factor that makes me think that this is a possibility is that you and I know, as competitors, obviously playing basketball for many years, the worst thing you want to be called is a quitter.
Right.
If you just weren't good enough, that's fine. You can put your head on the pillow that night. But if you're called a quitter and your character is questioned, and that's
Worst.
exactly what Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert did in his letter once LeBron left the first time to go to Miami, and he also said we'd win a title before that bum ever does. So
Right.
that didn't turn out for him. Dan Gilbert's just a smug guy. You just don't really trust at all. And LeBron still to this day has not forgiven him. In public interviews, he won't mention his name. So he clearly still holds that grudge even after 7 years. So
Definitely.
he has no problem with saying, what do I owe this front office? They treated me like dirt for making a free decision, and then I came back and brought him a championship. So from that perspective, you can see how he'd be okay with leaving.
Definitely. I just think at this point he owes Cleveland, especially the front office, nothing, because
Right.
they had never won a championship. He went there for 3 years, returned for 3 years, and he's already won them a championship. So he's done all he needed to do there. But I think for his legacy-wise, I think he would look better if he was in Cleveland most of his career, because he would be associated with that number one franchise as the Cavs. If you look at most of the best players of all time, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, they're associated with one franchise, Bill Russell. So I think that would look good for LeBron to be mostly associated with Cleveland. But at this point, he doesn't really owe them anything. So I wouldn't blame him for going elsewhere. I could see the Lakers, possibly the Knicks, possibly go back to the Heat, because he's multiple times in his career talked about wanting to go play with some of his best friends, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo. And he may feel at this point that I've already won my championship. I just want to go play with my friends for my last couple of years. So I could definitely see him teaming up somewhere with them. When we talk about Los Angeles, I could definitely see Paul George or maybe Carmelo going there. Both will be free agents next year. Anthony will be a restricted free agent, but he'll probably opt out at that point. So It could be Paul George, could be Melo, and playing with Lonzo Ball could definitely be intriguing for him.
Right.
But I think if he were to go there, he'd have to change his game a little bit because Lonzo is such a pass-first guy, and so is LeBron. But as we know, LeBron, when he wants to score in bunches, he can. So I think if he went there to play with Ball, he would definitely have to be a little more of a scorer, which could be a little uncomfortable for him because he likes having control of the game, making all the decisions, and reading the defense and making his biggest impact as a passer. So that could definitely be something difficult for him, but I think they could work it out if they brought in a go-to scorer like Paul George or Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, think about LeBron's backcourt history here. We have the two most prominent guys are Dwayne Wade and Kyrie Irving, who were score first.
Right.
He's never played with a point guard like Lonzo Ball, who is pass first, likes to push it ahead and run the break. And LeBron wants some of that responsibility himself because he is gifted like a point guard. But getting back quickly to the legacy debate, which is very important because you bring this up and it hasn't been brought up in any of this LeBron talk. You're the savior who saved Cleveland from a 52-year title drought. You're the best athlete in Cleveland. You're born there, so it means so much more. And you voluntarily chose to leave that place twice.
Right.
One time for South Beach and another for LA. Like it's just become such a murky legacy discussion. I don't care how great you are. And it'd be one thing if LeBron went like 3 of 4 in title, but he's lost and failed
Multiple
in Cleveland
times,
too, whether he was outmanned and had obviously
3 times now.
Yeah, had injury issue. That's right, 07.
Yeah.
So if you're LeBron, you have to be conscientious of my jersey's going to be retired, and my legacy when people look back on my career as a Mount Rushmore player will be in Cleveland. That's my overriding accomplishment, and I chose to leave there twice.
Right.
It's
It's definitely something he's aware of. It's just a matter of whether he cares or not about his legacy, or whether he just wants to do what he wants to do, team up with his friends. So
continue to win.
We'll see in a year.
Yep. All right. Going back to the NFL, the Shield. The Washington Redskins quarterback Kirk Cousins has been franchise tagged for the 2nd straight year by the organization. Jack, this tug of war between Washington's front office and Kirk Cousins continues, and it keeps fans wondering whether Kirk Cousins will be the franchise quarterback moving forward. So, Jack, what should Washington do with Cousins?
Well, personally, I think you play this season out, and you want to. If he wants this much money again next year, he keeps asking for 1-year deals. They just offered him to be the 2nd highest paid quarterback in the league.
Right.
He didn't take that, so he either doesn't want to be there, or he just wants to be franchise tagged every single year. So to me, he's not that great of a quarterback that you need to be spending this much money on him. Mm-hmm. He's definitely a top 15 quarterback, but I don't think he's a top 10 elite quarterback at this point in his career. He throws a lot of touchdowns, obviously, but he also throws a lot of passes. It's partly because of his receivers. He also throws a lot of picks. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely not worth the highest amount of money for a quarterback, and I think if he demands this much money again going forward, it's becoming a huge problem. I think they should move on. You plug in another good quarterback in that system, or at least a decent quarterback, have them throw the ball that many times to good receivers, they're going to get results. So I do think moving forward, if he demands this much money, they should not re-sign him.
Yeah, this contract game of tug of war is so just bizarre because it seems like if you're the Redskins, Kirk Cousins would have been completely content with a long-term extension a year ago, and that could have solved this whole thing. But now they're back to a 2nd consecutive franchise. Kirk Cousins is saying, well, I want to keep my options open for next March. And obviously the target is the 49ers that keep swirling around that he may sign to. But I think this year is going to be especially a challenge for Kirk Cousins, and we can't assume that a long-term deal will be given to him after this because he's going to be the first quarterback in NFL history, I believe, to lose 2 1,000-yard receivers, Pierre Garçon to the 49ers and Deshaun Jackson to Tampa, and they're both extremely productive. And with those two out of the picture, all you have really is Jamison Crowder matched with not the most stellar backfield. So there's going to be a lot more pressure on Kirk Cousins and Jordan Reed's health is always in question.
That's true.
It seems so, but he's certainly special.
Yeah.
But a lot more of the onus is going to be on Kirk Cousins to be productive, but also have ball control because his defense isn't the best, and you have a lot of firepower in that NFC East.
Absolutely.
So you're 2 times a year playing teams with plenty of offensive power and skill, and so this year will really be a determining factor. But the last 2 years, he's thrown for 4,000 yards. His touchdown to interception ratio has been about 55 to 23 over those 2 years, and I just give Kirk Cousins so much credit and continue to believe in him because he was drafted in the same class as Robert Griffin III. And as soon as he went down, he was first given the opportunity. He knew in his mind that the standard is this, all the praise that this RG3 has gotten, and he took it head on and became the starter and earned it. So I believe in him going forward either way.
Definitely, but I do feel that he's not a max money guy at the quarterback position. I don't think he's earned that at this point, because if you look at the team's results, where have they gone in the playoffs with him as the starting quarterback? It's not all his fault, but clearly if he's doing that well and they're only winning 7 games, you need to upgrade at other positions, the defensive line, the secondary, and now receivers. So I think a lot of the spending has to go to there going forward. And if you get a competent quarterback like an Alex Smith, who's also going to be a free agent next year, to go along with some of these new wide receivers, if you're able to sign them, you may have a more balanced team as opposed to relying so much on your quarterback who you're paying this much money for.
Yeah, if he's productive, I don't see how you can. This is the most important position in sports. He's age 29, and they don't come around that often. If you're the Washington Redskins, you're swapping out Blaine Gabbert from Kirk Cousins to me to being maybe a 4-win team. I think a quarterback, even as you said, I don't put him anywhere ahead of like the 12 to 15 range, but still having that top tier quarterback in that better half rather than that worse half is a franchise changer, just because how much this league has emphasized passing. The Redskins are a high-powered offense, and he's the engine that starts all that, and I believe he's vital for their success continuing.
Definitely, I agree with you. I think the biggest thing is we slightly disagree on just exactly how good he is and how much money he wants. I think he wants a little bit too much for how good of a player he is. But I agree, you can't just lose a guy like that, because if you replace him with a random quarterback, they're done, because he accounts for such a big part of their offense. Yeah, he certainly isn't the most mobile guy, not the most athletic, but he has leadership qualities. He has the big arm. But it seems last year he really could have capitalized on opportunity it was win or go home for the playoffs in that Giants game, where they were fighting for a playoff spot also, but were already in and didn't have as much motive and still came out there and won. It's a game like that where you say, well, Kirk Cousins has been acting like he deserves this money, but you got to finish the job. And he, in regular season games, like that same year, he won a big game on Sunday Night Football, can't remember against who currently, but he ran up to his GM, if you remember, and said, "How do you like that?" So it's become like a one-on-one battle that Kirk Cousins needs to be the bigger man about and just do your talking on the field. Definitely. Late season, he's struggled a little bit, so he has yet to prove himself to that extent. But we'll see. Yeah. Going forward here, back to the NBA, one of the biggest yet most controversial names from this year's draft is rookie Lonzo Ball, who was drafted by the Lakers. Ball has been on fire recently in Summer League. Simon, how much better do you think he can help the recently struggling Lakers as a rookie, and just how good of an NBA player do you project him to be going forward? Well, as we saw last night, he was named Summer League MVP despite not even playing the championship game, averaging 16 points, 9 assists, record in Summer League, and 7 rebounds. So he seemed to show a very complete package of what he can do, and I just love that we finally have an emerging star who, as much as you and me love the score-first point guards, Steph, Westbrook, Dame, John Wall, IT, the list goes on and on. This is a guy who finally is bringing back the tradition of when I make a play, I want to make others better. I want to pass the ball ahead in transition, rather than most guys who are the score-first, like Steph, Westbrooks of the world, just say, well, my dribbling and athleticism will be good enough to get my team where I want to go. Lonzo, in so many of these games, has pushed the tempo, pushed it up the court, gotten it to scorers, made even guys like Kyle Kuzma, who most of us don't think much about, just getting him in perfect spots to score. So that unselfish factor is definitely something cool to see, especially when you think about the team being operated by Magic Johnson, the greatest passer in NBA history, in my opinion, and a lot of others. And so it just seems like a perfect fit, especially being a hometown kid. And with the makeup of the Lakers, they did improve this offseason kind of a sneaky way. I think Brook Lopez was a good addition. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a emerging star, can really play both ends. I think and Brandon Ingram has a lot of promise in his second year. I think his scoring will go up to about 17, 18 points a game this year. But the one thing that the Lakers need to surround Lonzo with to make them more complete is shooting. They just don't have those outside shooters, and in today's NBA, as we've discussed many times on the show already,
you have to have those shooters around you to be in serious contention in today's NBA.
Absolutely. And you make a good point about how Ball makes others better around him. As basketball players, we know exactly what it's like to play with a point guard that just only helps himself, and we know what it's like to play with a point guard that helps everyone else around him. You can literally watch Lonzo and just feel him making everyone else better around him. Guys are more confident. Guys are more confident in their shot, and he just gets you the ball in the right spot. So I think he's going to be a great lead guard for them going forward. He's going to make everyone better, but you just need to get the right guys around him, because with that style of play, you want guys that can hit shots, and right now they don't have that many shooters. Ingram could be a good scorer going forward, and Caldwell Pope, but he's only there on a one-year deal. So if they can bring in like a Paul George or someone like that, I think Lonzo Ball could really elevate his game. And as in terms of the fit, I think it's great. He lives right down the street in Los Angeles. It's where he wanted to go. It's where his whole family obviously wanted him to go. And I just think it's going to be a great fit for him. With Magic Johnson, too, he'll be a great mentor, also a point guard, tall point guard who played a similar style of play. So I think it's an outstanding fit.
Yeah, people keep going back to this. I still look at the funky shot as a concern, only because, one, he didn't shoot it very well in Summer League. So we've seen in Summer League plays taking the opportunity to get plenty of three-point shots up, and it hasn't worked. And from a defensive perspective, if I'm a coach, I'm saying every time force Lonzo to his right, even though he is a righty, because he brings that shot over to his left. So you can't, as Lonzo Ball has said, he loves to dribble to his left so he can get smoothly into his jumper, which he can't do if he's dribbling to the right. I think once teams start to implement those details into the schematics of defending him, then it'll be harder for him to operate, because you can pass and that's great, but as a ball handler, someone who's going to be in control of the offense, we've seen it in Summer League, but you're going to have to score consistently with your jumper and with your driving ability.
Definitely.
So that's a question mark, certainly.
Absolutely. I think there's been a few times where opposing teams have made him uncomfortable. It's been pretty rare, but like Kentucky in the two matchups in college, De'Aaron Fox, their point guard, got up in his grill a lot. Too. And yeah, he did some great research on Lonzo's game and was taking away his three, taking away his drive and forcing him into those tough mid-range shots, which he's just not comfortable taking. And he also took away his passing in that game. He only had a couple assists. So he is definitely vulnerable right now, but he's also very comfortable in this situation. I think he's going to only improve, and if he works on to get the hitch out of that jump shot, it'll be great for his game, especially in the mid-range, because you physically can't go mid-range and jump off the ground and then fling it up like that. So it's definitely, he needs open space for threes or just open driving lanes, but his passing's always going to be there. So even if they take away a shot at this point, he's always going to be still helping his teammates and making everyone better around him.
In terms of where Lonzo is mentally, I think he is obviously a guy who is very stoic, doesn't show a lot of expression, just about his business and making the correct play. I think late in games, for at least the way the makeup of the Lakers is now, maybe in the future you're obviously targeting these big free agents, but for at least this season it'll be Lonzo's team, not as a playoff team. They're not making the playoffs, I don't think, but the point is he's the guy and he's going to have to make the play late. I think he needs, maybe this just isn't his personality and he won't be able to deliver with this, but some dog in him and some I'm going to make the play late, even show maybe a little bit of his dad's side, show that ego a little more outwardly like he does. You don't want to become too much like him, but you have sort of that mentality of, this is my team, I'm the future all-star of this team, I'm the face. Magic Johnson's been out there with it, so I'm going to act like it, especially late when we need it.
Yeah, we've seen his demeanor on the court and in interviews. It almost seems like he doesn't care, but he still goes out there and produces. So if we could see a little more emotion and passion, I think his teammates would also feed off of that. Yeah. So we'd definitely like to see
certainly
that going
dedicated
forward.
To the game, though.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this edition of the show. As always, you can check out Hingham Media for the most recent Jacket Size Big Five episode, and we'll be back next week with more. Thanks for tuning in.
You are watching Jacket Size Big Five.